Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 27 of the Should Have Gone Pro podcast. Hope everyone's been having a good week. I know we've been gone for a little bit. We were off doing some other things, and we are back though. We wanted to give some time for some of these playoff series to get started, so we're gonna give our thoughts on the first couple of games of these series, see how our brackets are looking compared to it. And just talk some NBA playoff basketball because even though we're only 2 or 3 games into these series, a lot's been going on. So definitely some fun stuff to talk about today. And then next week we're planning to have our NFL mock draft before the draft on Thursday. So that should be a fun one too. So
I'm gonna have no idea.
yeah, it's going to be interesting. But Brock, how you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, I think when we get to it eventually, I have a little bit more optimism for one of these series after 2 games than I did going into it. But yeah, no, the playoffs have been fun so far. It's kind of unfortunate that we were talking about injuries, how it could possibly derail a team, and it seems like Phoenix and Milwaukee are already having to go through that, and even Utah too Dallas without Luka right now. But so we'll see how that ends up playing out. I think that it was ruled that Booker and Middleton are both going to be out for the rest of the first round series. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Suns and Milwaukee can handle not having in Milwaukee's case their second best player, and I think you can make the argument that Devin Booker's probably Phoenix's best player. I don't know. Certainly the argument's there for Chris Paul, but it's going to be interesting to see how that 2 teams with title aspirations, how that's going to affect their runs in the postseason.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to see these things happen. Obviously, we don't like to see these teams not at full strength, so it hurts their playoff chances. I actually just saw this very second that we'll talk about the Celtics later, but Robert Williams is back for Game 3, so that's a big thing right there. But yeah, I was going to start just moving around the bracket that we had made and talk about what we had picked and if we think it's anywhere near what's going to happen. We both picked Phoenix in 4, which obviously is not going to happen now after the Pelicans stole Game 2. I believe Game 3 is tonight. We're recording this on a Friday. Yeah, like we said, Phoenix missing Devin Booker is massive. Ingram and McCollum have both been playing pretty well. Valanciunas. This Pelicans team is looking a little sneaky. I don't know if they can win 4 games out of 7 in this series, but I think that they're definitely going to be able to give them a little bit of a run with Booker out. But this Suns team, like we've been talking about, is just so deep, and I do think that Phoenix still wins this series, but it's going to be closer than it should be. I'm thinking I originally said Phoenix in 4. I'm thinking Phoenix in probably 6 now, but definitely closer than it should have been. But this Pelicans team, if you get Zion back next year and get some of these guys to improve, they could definitely be moving up the charts a little bit. But I think Phoenix still has enough depth to get this done. But and Chris Paul's been playing fantastic, so I think that the Suns are going to be okay. But it's definitely a little scary when Booker goes down.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I was saying when Game 2, I was watching CJ McCollum. I was like, that was such a good pickup for the Pelicans at the time. I didn't really know how he would fit with that team, but he's been, terrific, honestly. And that was Brandon Ingram's coming out party in Game 2. He had some just ridiculous shots down the stretch that anytime Phoenix would cut into a lead and get a little bit of momentum back, and to do that on the road is crazy. And that shot he hit in the short corner, I don't know, maybe over Mikal Bridges, was just ridiculous. Some of the shots that guy's able to hit, and it's good for Brandon Ingram, who was an all-star. Was it last year or 2 years ago for the first time? Really had
2 years ago.
Yeah, just always been good. And someone was talking on the radio or one of the sports talk shows that if you think about all the players that the Lakers have gotten rid of, all of them have had pretty good careers since they've left Los Angeles. Julius Randle last year with the Knicks was an all-star and had a really good season. Kyle Kuzma this year had, I think, probably the best year of his career. and Brandon Ingram's made an All-Star game and is doing this in the playoffs now, and then obviously Lonzo in Chicago. But yeah, I just want to go back to game one really quick, and I feel like this could have something to do. I don't know if I'm trying to connect something that's not there, but I mean, if you remember in that game, and like I think it was the third quarter, Phoenix was up big in that game, like 20 points, and none of the starters were playing. Which when you can have that happen in a playoff game and get them rest, that's huge. And then slowly New Orleans started clawing back into the game, and got down to the point where Monty Williams had to go back to Chris Paul, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton. I think Devin Booker ended up playing like 41 minutes in game one, which is pretty crazy when you consider they were up by 20 at one point in the third quarter. And it's like, I feel like it would have been nice for Phoenix to have held on to that big lead and not had to play Devin Booker 41 minutes in the game when they were up 20 at one point. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I think this is going to be a dogfight down. I'm gonna go Phoenix in 7. I like New Orleans to split at home, and then I like them to get. I think they get 2 more games on Phoenix. I obviously think Phoenix is going to look a lot better in game 3 than they would losing Devin Booker in the middle, or I guess toward the end of game 2. That's kind of hard to prepare for when it just happens in game like that. So I think Monty Williams will have Phoenix ready to play, and they'll look a lot better, and they'll have a game plan without Devin Booker. But it's certainly a big blow to Phoenix's hopes if Devin Booker is unable to make it back and play at full strength, because that's the one thing with the hamstring injury. It feels like those can kind of stack on top of each other. And if it happens again, who knows how long he'll be out if it happens for a second time. But just wishing a speedy recovery for Booker. Hopefully he takes it easy, has the ability to rest for the full 3 weeks, doesn't try and rush back. It can help Phoenix in the second round and continue toward another push to the finals.
Yeah, those hammies seem to linger around a lot too, and I
think this is like his third one this year.
Yeah, they can be hard to get to kick off. So definitely not a great sign there, but I think we both agree that Phoenix still gets this done despite this Pelicans team being pretty pesky. So yeah, definitely turned into a lot more entertaining, interesting series now with Booker out, just as far as the competitive standpoint. But moving to another series that is having some star injuries that might be returning is Dallas and Utah. Last night, Dallas took the 2-1 lead over Utah. Jalen Brunson has been amazing. A lot of the shooters for them have been stepping up. Kleba, Bertans, Dinwiddie's been playing well. This Dallas team really has some good momentum rolling here. And Utah just doesn't seem like they have enough firepower. They had a good comeback last night, but then Dallas pulled away again, which is some incredible shot making by Brunson. And when you get Luka back into that fold, I feel like it's wraps at that point. I originally said Dallas in 6. I'm going to say Dallas in 5. And I don't think Utah wins another game in this series. Donovan Mitchell has been really inconsistent. Rudy Gobert continues to be a liability. But I mean, you and I both trash on Gobert enough, so I don't think we need to go into that again. But I do think that this Dallas team, even without Luka, is better than some people thought. And if Luka's supposed to come back either game 4 or game 5, and I think at that point you can pretty much call this series wraps. So I'm gonna switch it up actually to Dallas in 5 instead of 6. And I'm like what I'm seeing out of this Mavericks team.
Yeah, I had Dallas in 7. I'm going off that. I like Dallas in 5. Once they get Luka back, Jalen Brunson's been electric so far in the postseason. Had 40 in game 2, and then another 30 last night, and just was making just big baskets down the stretch in both games. And yeah, this is a series that Utah, I think, had to win. It's going to be interesting to see what happens if they do go on to lose this series and are bounced in the first round. That's, they've been kind of that team that everyone is just waiting for them to. I mean, they have they string together some really good regular seasons, and they get in the postseason. And when you can make those, like we've said, when you in that 7-game series, it's a new game. Each time you step out on the floor, the coaches are going to make adjustments, and it just feels like there's a way to beat the Utah Jazz, and it's getting exposed again in the postseason this year. I don't really think they have. I mean, everyone calls Rudy Gobert a second star, but in the playoffs, he's just not. I mean, you need when you have guys like on Dallas, like Luka, Brunson, and Spencer Dinwiddie, who can go get their own shot and score in multiple ways. Donovan Mitchell doesn't have that. Bogdan Bogdanovic is more of just a catch and shoot, 3-and-D guy, but there's no one else really on that team. I mean, Mike Conley's old. There's no one else on that team aside from Jordan Clarkson off the bench who can really get you a basket when you need it outside of Donovan Mitchell. And I think that's Utah's biggest issue. And until they find someone who they can pair alongside Donovan Mitchell, I think this is just going to be the same result with Utah. And I look for that team to get blown up this offseason if they don't win. If they don't at least advance to the second round of the playoffs, it still could happen anyway. Because again, that's just every year in the postseason they get there and disappoint. They were the 1 seed last year and lost in the second round. They haven't made the Western Conference Finals in Donovan Mitchell's tenure. And I mean, Donovan Mitchell's easily a top probably 15 player in the NBA. And it's just, I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. You have a superstar player and you've got to surround him with talent or he's going to leave, especially in a market like Utah where they don't get free agents. You don't want to lose a guy like Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, I feel like there's no other option if you lose this series other than to blow up this team and restart because they're obviously not going to go anywhere. Donovan Mitchell's just got to be frustrated at this point. You think he's going to want to leave eventually. There's not much positive you can really say about Utah right now and their situation. It's kind of at that point where they're kind of reaching the boiling point where they might just have to restart here, which is going to be interesting to see where a lot of these guys end up going if they do blow it up. But yeah, you and I both agreed Dallas in 5. They've been looking like the much better team. Another team that's looking much better than their opponent is Golden State against Denver. Pretty much just Golden State versus Jokic. It's last night the Warriors made it a 3-0 series lead. Curry's been coming off the bench playing really well. Klay Thompson is getting his shot back. Jordan Poole has been amazing. He's been the third splash brother in these postseasons so far, and just a lot of the guys for the Warriors are stepping up and playing well together. And I don't see this series becoming competitive at all. Obviously, I said Golden State in 5, and I'm going to change it to a sweep. I don't think that Denver has anybody to help Jokic at this point. It's really hard to watch because Jokic's such a great player, but he's putting up these great stat lines, but nobody can do anything to help him around him. And at that point, you just get pretty frustrated. So I'm thinking Golden State goes in to Denver for Game 4 and pulls off the sweep. And Denver's story of the season was just injuries. So you can't be too upset about the situation that Denver was through the season because they were just gave an unfortunate hand with Jamal Murray being out, Michael Porter, some guys that were able to take some of the pressure off of Jokic just aren't available. So this Golden State team looks really good right now. I think that I still like my pick of them going to the conference finals. I think this Golden State team is really good, and they have the pieces you need to be a championship contender or even a title winner. So I'm changing it from Golden State in 5 to Golden State in 4. I think it's a clean sweep.
Yeah, I think that was the storyline we had going into the series. Like who's gonna? It's Jokic and who else? I mean, Aaron Gordon, who they traded for last year from Orlando, hasn't really had a great performance. He played better last night. And then Will Barton, who are like, I mean, those are the next 2 guys up. And usually they're the 4th and 5th option, but they've been slid up with the injuries. And yeah, it's just tough. I mean, Jokic had another really good game last night, 37 points, and they had a chance to win it late, but I think that's just where Golden State's experience in the playoffs and having all those weapons that you can go to. I think Steph Curry's probably right now the greatest playoff six man in NBA history. But Jordan Poole's looked in freaking incredible. I mean, I don't even the kid was in the G League last year, really was struggling to find a shot, and then here he is this year, had that massive game one, and has just followed it up with two really good performances since then. And Klay Thompson's back healthy for Golden State, which is a sight to see because he had a really tough 2-year stretch after he tore his ACL, then blowing out his Achilles, having to miss 2 full seasons. So yeah, I mean, I think Golden State's done what they were supposed to do. I'm going to keep it Golden State in 5. I think Denver, the way they played last night, I think they're going to come out again, give it their all as much as they can. I mean, they were right there late in that game. There was just a couple of possessions that didn't go their way. And Draymond Green's doing what he can on Jokic. I think I like Denver to get one, and then Roracle's going to be packing in game 5, and I think Golden State takes it away on home, which that's going to pay off really big dividends in just a second. I mean, when we get to the Memphis Minnesota series, but with Steph Curry, if Golden State can close it out in 4 or even 5, they're going to have a couple of days extra rest because we had the Memphis Minnesota series going deep. So if that hits 7 games and Golden State's out in 4 or 5, they're going to have a nice couple days rest to get Steph back more healthy. Give a couple guys a chance to just rest and relax and hang out and not have to worry about being right back in there to get back on the grind. It's gonna be, and when you can get those days off in the postseason, it definitely helps.
Yeah, because you really look at, again, the injuries that have been happening to some of these players like Booker and Middleton and stuff like that. You really can't take those rest days for granted. And just having that extra break for these guys to kind of get their bodies back. So, yeah, I think we're both pretty confident in Golden State taking that series pretty handily. The last series in the West, which has been quite an interesting one so far, to say the least, Memphis and Minnesota. I had originally picked Memphis in 6, and I'm going to stick with that. But this Minnesota team has been pesky, man. They went out and won game 1. Really made a pretty big statement in game 1 going into Memphis and getting that win. Game 2, Memphis just came back firing like crazy and blew them out. And then last night was a trip, a 26-point Minnesota lead that got erased. Then they built back up a 23-point lead, and then they lost it again. And the only thing I can think is the reasoning behind this is just the inexperience. And when they get that big lead, they're taking their foot off the gas, even if they're not doing it consciously. It's happening subconsciously, where they're just like riding off the crowd being hype and, oh, we did it, but the clock didn't hit 0 yet. And this Memphis team can get hot quick. Desmond Bane can just start lighting it up from 3. Obviously, Ja flying around the court, which something that really stood out to me last night when I was watching that game was how often Ja is taking contact at the rim and hitting the ground. He just keeps slamming into the floor, running into these 7-footers, and eventually it's going to take a toll on his body. So that's something I'm a little worried about for Memphis, is just the amount of contact that John Morant's taken. I feel like it scares me every time he goes up super high and then has to try and land it in between the trees, because I'm afraid he's going to take one wrong step and that's going to be it. It's a little scary. It kind of gives me Derrick Rose Bulls vibes, and it scares me a little bit. So hopefully that doesn't end up happening. But this Memphis team can just get hot super quick, and Minnesota just started chucking up bad shots, throwing the ball all over the place, and a lot of ISO ball. Karl-Anthony Towns has been disappointing besides game 1. He only took like 4 or 5 shots last night, which for Karl-Anthony Towns, he's supposed to be either your first or second option, depending how you rank him and Ant. And he's got to be taking at least 10 shots a night. That's absolutely ridiculous. So Cat has been hiding in the background. I think Minnesota can pull off another game in this series. I think they may be able to pull off game 4 if they fix some of their mistakes, and they'll be in Minnesota still. So I think they still have a chance to win another game in this series. But this Memphis team show that they have that dog in them to come back in these fights and again just get buckets in a hurry. So I believe it was a 21-0 run they had last night at one point in the game. So I'm going to stick with Memphis in 6, but this Minnesota team, if they can mature and use this experience and stuff, I think the next 2 or 3 years they can really be a contender. But as of right now, I got Memphis in 6.
Yeah, I have Memphis in 7. I'm gonna leave it at that. Um, Minnesota's really came back down to earth after they played a really good game in game 1, and I mean I was checking the score last night, and like you said, I looked and it was like almost a 30-point lead, and I was like, what? I was like, well, this game looks like it's over, and then I got back home and Memphis came all the way back and beat them. It's just brutal. I mean, you got to wonder how that's going to affect them mentally and emotionally in this series. You had a chance to jump out to a 2-1 lead. You're at home, a chance to potentially sweep the home side of the series if you would have won that game. They didn't, unfortunately. You blew a big lead, so it's going to be interesting to see how they let that affect them. But Minnesota, yeah, I agree. Karl-Anthony Towns cannot be taking less than he should be taking 15 shots a game. The guy's an all-star, one of the best big men in the game, one of the best young players in the game, and he should be taking way more shots than. I know we had foul trouble again last night, which that's never easy, gets you off your rhythm. But still, I think there's no excuse for Karl-Anthony Towns to be taking less than 15 shots, especially in a playoff game when he's supposed to be their, like you said, their best, or I think it's 1A or 1B with him and Anthony Edwards. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think he'll come out and be hopefully more aggressive, more assertive, looking for a shot in the offense. But yeah, I was really excited about this series. There's just so much young talent just on both rosters, and I think this is going to be, these two teams are going to be playoff staples. I would expect for the next couple of years, and both teams are really kind of getting there. Memphis had it last year when they went through the play-in and matched up. I can't remember who they played in the first round. Was it the Clippers? Or was it the Jazz? It was the Jazz.
The Jazz.
Yeah,
Jazz.
because they beat them game 1, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So they got a little bit of a taste of postseason basketball last year. Minnesota, obviously, they kind of taken a similar route this year. Went through the play-in, took the first game, and then have come back down to earth. But I like this series. I think it has the potential to go 7 games. I like it to go 7 games. And yeah, I think these are going to be two teams just full of young players getting valuable postseason experience. That's only going to help them down the line because they're only going to get better, honestly. And this is exactly what you can hope for young players. They got to learn how to play postseason basketball at some point. And what a better way when you're kind of on the. I mean, both teams were. I definitely did not expect Memphis was easily the shock of the year. I didn't expect Minnesota to make the playoffs. So kind of those guys with a little bit of the under. I don't want to call them underdogs, but no one was really expecting this from them. So to get into the playoffs, be playing this well, it's just going to only help them out down the line.
Yeah, that's a great point. I agree 100% what you said about us seeing both these teams in the playoffs for the near future, kind of being staples in these races and making some deeper runs as they get more experience and stuff. Because again, these are both super young teams, so it's all about getting that experience and the discipline and knowing how to handle these situations. Because when you get in the heat of the moment, it's easy to check out some bad shots or make some errant passes. So that's what happened to Minnesota last night, and I think that a couple more years of experience could really make a difference for some of these guys. But yeah, so on the West side, we both stuck with all of our choices for Phoenix, Dallas, and Golden State, Memphis. Some of them changed up a little more than we expected, but I think we both still feel confident in our picks there. But moving to the East, I know some of those have changed a little bit. I'll start at the top of the list though with Miami and Atlanta. Atlanta really gave Miami a run in that game 2. I believe game 3 is tonight in Atlanta, and I don't think Atlanta has enough to get the job done, but I do think that they'll be able to steal at least one game. I said Miami in 5 originally. I'm going to stick with that. I think that Atlanta either pulls off the win tonight or in game 4. and at least gets one win under their belt and not get swept. But this Miami team is deep. They're a lot better defensively. Tyler Hero's really stepped up as far as a bucket getter, and I feel like this Miami team is, like we mentioned in the last episode, a tougher out than people may think, even though they're a 1 seed, because everyone's thinking about uh, Nets, Celtics, Bucks, even Sixers, all these teams that have all the big talk around them. But this Heat team is good; they're really good, and I think that um, as long as some guys can step up and put in a couple more buckets than usual on any given night, I think this Heat team is going to be good. So I'm sticking with them in 5, but Atlanta, I think, will steal at least one game at home.
I had Miami in 4. I'm sticking with it. Miami's so deep, it's crazy. The people that can just bring off their bench, Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero, who can get it going. You saw Duncan Robinson had the big game 1, and then Jimmy Butler had the big game 2. I think Jimmy Butler is one of the most underrated and undervalued players in the league. Yeah, he doesn't necessarily do it all. He can't do it all on the offensive end of the floor in terms of shoot the ball with a high percentage, but he was knocking down jumpers and getting to the rim and making just all the hustle plays in game 2. 45 points, just ridiculous. I think that means playoff career high. I think it said he's the 3rd player in Miami Heat history with a 45, 5-5 playoff game with LeBron and Dwayne Wade. So I mean that's pretty rare company for a guy that doesn't really get talked about on the offensive side of the game. But I mean, what he brings defensively, and Trae Young's played really bad this series. Yeah, I know he had. I think it was 29 points in game 2, but he had 10 turnovers. You can't win. I mean, Atlanta as a team had 19, and Trae Young had more than half of them. So you're not going to win a game like that against a team like Miami. And I mean, even in the first game, just so like he didn't necessarily have the turnovers, but I mean, he easily could have had 6 or 7 more on top of what he had in the first game. So many of his passes were just getting tipped, and I think obviously not having Clint Capella on those lobs to the rim is a problem for Atlanta. And they really miss him because you've seen some of those passes Trae Young makes. I think the Trae Young to Clint Capella is the most assisted duo this year in the league on the lob pass, and to just not have that in the offense. So you can see a couple of times where Trae throws it up to the rim, and the guy he does it with is just out of sync, and he's just not used to not throwing it to Clint Capella at the rim. So yeah, Atlanta's struggled. Bogdanovich for them coming off the bench had a really good game too. But Trae Young's going to have to play a lot better if Atlanta wants to make this a competitive series. And I just think that the way Miami plays defense, they can put Jimmy Butler on him if they want to. Kyle Lowry's a capable defender. I just like what Miami can throw at Atlanta defensively. So I have Miami winning a clean sweep. It's going to be interesting to see now that Atlanta's back home. The arena is going to be full. They're going to be loud, but Miami's been there before. They've been to the finals. They've been to the playoffs. They have playoff experience. They're not going to let a hostile crowd affect how they play. So I mean, all the pressure's on Atlanta right now. They've got to win. I mean, they have to win at least one of these games. If they've been, it pretty much is a must win tonight, or they're in fear, or it's likely they're going to get swept anyway. So big game 3 for Atlanta tonight. We'll see. Let's see how Trae Young plays, but I like Miami in the clean sweep.
Yeah, that's a good point there you mentioned about Clint Capella being out, and especially having that paint presence on defense as well with guys like Bam on the other side is really a glaring hole for this Hawks team at this point.
And I mean that's where Jimmy Butler does most of his work anyway. Was when he gets to the rim, and I mean when you don't have a 7-footer like Capella who can block shots, get offensive or get rebounds on both ends of the floor, and just challenge shots. It's hard to be the same team. And I mean he was a big reason why they made that Eastern Conference Finals run last year. Played really good in the postseason. So it's unfortunate. Again, man, injuries just biting teams in the ass at the worst time, and it certainly looked like it's thrown off Atlanta's game plan, and their chance of winning this series significantly diminished, or at least making competitive when Capella went down.
Oh yeah, I agree 100%. I think Capella's a little bit undervalued as far as when people think of centers in the NBA. So I think that he's a really solid big man. Obviously, a more traditional big man compared to the ones today, especially when we're going to talk about in a second. But yeah, missing him is a glaring hole for this team, and Trae Young has just been erratic to say the least on offense. So um, moving ahead to the Philly Toronto series. I originally said Philly in 7. It's a pretty drastic change here. I'm changing it to a clean sweep by Philly, and they have looked really good. I've been impressed with what I've seen. I was a little iffy on the MVP conversation for this season, and obviously the playoffs don't count towards MVP because it's the regular season award. But I think I have to take Embiid at this point. I mean, he has been absolutely incredible. The things he does as a 7-footer is ridiculous. He hit that game-winning 3 in overtime in Game 3, and it was a shot that you expect a guard to be shooting, and he's a 7-footer doing a turnaround jumper as the shot clock goes off. And this dude can post up against anybody. I mean, he's just the ultimate center that you'd want right now. Obviously, Jokic is there too, but the thing about the Sixers is they have the pieces around him right now, unlike Jokic and Tyrese Maxey been playing well. Harden hasn't been playing terrible. He hasn't been his normal self, but it's definitely not a terrible version of James Harden. I think Maxey had 38 in their first game of this series, and the Sixers team is rolling right now. A lot of the role players are stepping up and playing well. So I think it's a clean sweep. Toronto just doesn't have guys to stop Embiid and Harden and even Tyrese Maxey. So I think this Philly team has surprised me a little bit with how well they've dominated in some of these games against Toronto. So I'm changing it to a clean sweep for Philly, and I'm a little more weary about them versus the Heat. I did pick the Heat, but I think it's a little more debatable for me than it was before. That's for sure. But this Philly team looking pretty good.
Yeah, I was dead wrong. I had Toronto in 7. I think they lost Scotty Barnes in Game 1, which he's
Yeah.
he's a really good young player, finalist for Rookie of the Year. So obviously a big loss there, but yeah, I thought once Toronto lost on the buzzer beater by Joel Embiid in Game 3, it's going to sink the ship. I've got Philadelphia in 4 now. That's just heartbreaking. You were right there, and then they had a chance to win the game, but Precious Achua missed 2 free throws with a second left in the game, and I mean you can't do that in playoff basketball. That was a chance to win an ugly game, not send it to overtime. Philadelphia was lucky to get to overtime. I think they took the first lead of the game really late in the fourth quarter, and
yeah.
So I mean Toronto was in control of that game and then let it get away from them at the end. And those are just that's just kind of going back to the Minnesota game. Those are heartbreaking. Those are the worst kind of losses, especially in the postseason. They were at home, so and Joel Embiid was talking that shit to Drake after the game, which is pretty funny. But yeah, so I have Philadelphia in 4 now. I will say I was right still about James Harden. He hasn't really showed me anything so far. It's been all Embiid and Tyrese Maxey really going nuts. I'm still waiting for a good James Harden performance, but I mean he's played well enough. Yeah, he fouled out in Game 3 on late in the fourth quarter before overtime started, but I mean he hasn't really had the game that it's like, okay, James Harden's this is the year that James Harden's put those playoff demons behind him. So we'll see if he can come up big in that potential series with Miami if everything works out. But yeah, I have Philadelphia in a clean sweep right now. I completely changing from Toronto in 7 now to Philadelphia in 4.
Yeah, I think that might be the biggest change in our brackets is that one. Well, maybe this next one could be in that contention as well. The Milwaukee-Chicago series that I remember I had mentioned to you we wanted to do the podcast after just the first game had been done, and I was like, maybe we should wait for a second game to happen before you go off too much on your Bulls. And they came out and played a great game. DeRozan, they call him Frozen DeRozan on the broadcast. He was amazing. A lot of role players stepped up. I've loved what I've seen from Caruso so far, especially defensively.
So
Um,
good.
the Bulls team is really came together in game two there. Um, and now that Middleton is out for the rest of the series with an injury, that really changes some of the tide here. You're going back to Chicago for 2 games, and if the Bulls end up winning both those and take a 3-1 lead with no Middleton, I feel like that's really hard for the Bucks to pull that out. I feel like the Bucks have to win one of these next 2 games in Chicago for them to have a chance. And I think people undervalued a little bit how good Middleton was in last year's championship run.
Yeah.
Obviously, Giannis was amazing, but Middleton was their 3-point shooter, that one of their big bucket getters late in games, and not having him is a massive loss. So I originally said Milwaukee in 5. I'm changing that to Bulls in 6.
Hell
And
yeah.
I think that the Bucks can win Game 5 at home, but I don't think that they're able to win another game outside of that, just because the Bulls um, have a pretty decent defensive game plan going into this, and you're gonna need somebody to step up besides Giannis. With Middleton out, and Drew Holiday's been a little shaky at times, and Bobby Portis is out, and there's a lot of guys that were huge in the run last year that I feel like don't have that oomph that they do this year. I had the Bucks going to the finals originally in my bracket and having a rematch of last year's finals, but the Bucks team, I mean, it was a close game in game 1 anyway, so it wasn't even like it was a blowout with Middleton fully healthy and everything. So um, I think this Bulls team has enough firepower to get the job done. I think it's going to be a good series, though, regardless. I could definitely see it going 7. But I think this Bulls team, without Middleton on the floor and having these next 2 games in Chicago, the momentum is fully on Chicago's side, and they need to take advantage of it. So um, I'm taking Bulls in 6.
I'm right there with you. I'm changing it to Bulls in 6. I had Milwaukee in 4, but Chicago has really impressed me in this series. I think I think it's fair to make the argument that they should easily be up 2-0 in this series. That call game 1 where they called Patrick Williams for the box out on Giannis was such a bullshit call. Oh, it was so bad. Like I get it that Giannis is gone, but blow the whistle. That's a foul. He jumped over his back. Patrick Williams was boxing him out. And I mean, that would have been no Giannis for the last 2.5 minutes of that game. It was a super close game. And I mean, I was watching it early. The Bulls got down double digits. Were down double digits at halftime, and then just kind of were just ticking away at the lead. Played really well. Vucevic, don't get me started on Vucevic game 1. I was done with him taking 9 threes, missed 2 layups late in the game. That shot Zach LaVine took in game 1 was such a bad look. Yeah. Horrible shot. Took a 35-footer with 35 seconds left in the game, down 3. Get to the basket. Draw a foul. What are you doing taking a 35-foot contested jumper when you weren't even feeling it? 2 for 10. DeMar DeRozan shot terrible from the field. 6 of 25. Said he was never going to play like that again. Came out game 2 to his credit and was magnificent. Some of those shots he hit from the mid-range on game 2 were ridiculous. That one he hit over Giannis was just nuts. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's no fear from the mid-range. He just gets to his spot. I still feel like him and Zach LaVine play a little bit too much trade-off, playing hero ball a little bit too much. But it's worked so far. But, yeah, I mean, what Caruso's been able to do defensively, what the entire Bulls team has really been able to do defensively in general is really impressive, but especially Caruso. He's been just a pest. He's been everywhere. It feels like if there's a steal or a big he got the big offensive rebound at the end of game 2 that got the Bulls an extra possession that DeMar ended up scoring on and kind of sealing the game. But it feels like anytime there's a big play to be made, it's Alex Caruso coming through. I think he almost had 10 assists in game 2. Just did a really good job facilitating, playing defense, hit a couple threes. And yeah, I like the Bulls. I like the Bulls in 6 here. I think not having Middleton is really going to hurt Milwaukee. Especially when you don't have a guy that you can consistently say on a night-to-night basis. I mean, Chris Middleton's going to go out there and give you 20, 25 points, 6 or 7 rebounds, 6 or 7 assists, and it's just hits some big shots. and you can go to them late in the game like Milwaukee did last year in the postseason run. So, and I mean, I think this. I mean, it said he's out. The MCL said that maximum 4 weeks. So even if Milwaukee does survive this series, meeting up with Boston or Brooklyn in the second round with still no Middleton, that's going to pose a lot of problems as well. But I like Chicago, like you said. Madhouse on Madison is going to be rocking tonight. It's going to be a lot of red. That place is going to be insane. Bulls fans we've been waiting for the postseason to come back since 2015, so they're ready. And Chicago's really impressed me. Like I said, I was full off the Chicago train when the postseason started, which I think most Bulls fans were. They just limped to the finish. They played so bad, especially against good teams. And to see them come out the way they have against Milwaukee, not be scared of them, not be intimidated, and to play them tough in 2 games, and now you have the series. That's all you can ask for. You got to get a split on the road, and then handle your business at home. Chicago has that chance to go back to Milwaukee up 3-1 with the game in hand. So big game 3 tonight. Chicago's got to come out and play well, and can't let one get away from them and let Milwaukee get one back.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be a great series to watch. It will be good to see if our predictions are right, the Bulls getting some this postseason success, and it's a little bit of a shame that injuries had to take such a big factor into this series, but that's the way the cookies crumbled sometimes, and being healthy is a massive impact on postseason runs. So I feel like this will be a great series, and I'm looking forward to watching that one. And then the last series, which I just mentioned about Rob Williams a little bit earlier, he'll be back for Game 3, but we have Boston and Brooklyn, and Boston has a 2-0 lead going into Game 3 in Brooklyn, and Boston has done everything right as far as defensively. They've shut down Kevin Durant and Kyrie. They were both awful in Game 2, absolutely awful. And you should never see Kevin Durant have a shooting night like that. They were just swarming him whenever he got the ball. Made it difficult for them to get their offense flowing. Brooklyn's defense has always been a liability, and that continues, especially down the stretch in that game. Boston was just making some crazy shots, and Brooklyn wasn't able to put up the effort defensively. I originally said Boston in 7. I'm thinking Boston in 5, and it might sound a little bit like people are going to say, oh well, KD and Kyrie will get them 2 games, but I would agree with you originally on that statement. But looking at it now, the Boston has the formula and the defensive guys to shut down these scorers from going crazy. Obviously, they'll still get their points, but it's been coming at a premium in this series. Tatum has been electric. A lot of the role players have been stepping up well. Al Horford's been good defensively. I was a little surprised because he's pretty old, but he's still playing pretty well. Robert Williams coming back is a huge differentiator because Drummond was helping them the rebounds a lot for Brooklyn, but now that Rob Williams is down there to kind of combat that, I feel like this Boston team is just still rolling from the regular season. I've really enjoyed what I've seen from them, and I think that they have one of those teams that can make a deep playoff run, especially if the Bucks go down, if they match up against the Bulls. I think that's going to be a great series where if everyone's healthy, Boston could make a pretty deep playoff run this year if everything goes right. So I'm liking what I'm seeing out of the Celtics team. I think, again, the Nets, if their stars are shut down and they can't play defense, then it's a wrap. So I'm taking Boston in 5. I think that Brooklyn might steal either Game 3 or 4 back home, but this Boston team is just rolling out the right time. So I'm sticking with the train on that one, and Boston in 5.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't get on the Brooklyn bandwagon. I had Boston in 6. I'm going with you. I like Boston in 5. I just don't see after. I mean, Kevin Durant's not going to have. I would assume, but he's had 2 bad games in a row, especially in the second half of Game 2. Brooklyn was up most of that game and then just collapsed in the second half. I think Kevin Durant was 0 for 10 in the second half, had 4 turnovers. I mean, the only reason he 4 of 17, and the only reason his point total looks so good. I think he went to the free throw line 20 times, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I just don't see the way that Boston's been playing, especially the way they can play defense. Marcus Smart, Defensive Player of the Year. So, they've got some dogs on that roster. It feels like everyone can defend. Even Jason Tatum, maybe not the best defender, but he certainly tries his ass off. And I mean, that's something. I mean, he's a big body, and I mean, so yeah, I just don't see how Brooklyn has enough. And Ben Simmons is supposedly supposed to come back in Game 4. I just think that's another distraction for a team that doesn't need any more distractions. I mean, they've just been so noisy all season long, and it's like at some point that's going to catch up with them. And I don't think Ben Simmons is going to make any difference in this series at all, except for it's going to be a big headline, and it's something that Brooklyn doesn't need right now. So I mean, what a tenure Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving have had together in Brooklyn. It looks like no conference finals appearances, obviously no NBA finals, 2 first-round exits, and then last year they lost in the semifinals. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't see how Brooklyn, with all their moving parts, the distraction of Ben Simmons looming over their head, I don't see how they get 2 games. I think Kyrie and KD get them 1, but that's it. Boston in 5. Boston will go back home and win it in Game 5 at home in front of their fans, and it'll be a wrap. And then it's going to set up an interesting second round matchup. Like I said, either with Milwaukee, probably most likely without Middleton, or Chicago, who I think Chicago matches up better with Boston than they do Milwaukee. So that's going to be another interesting series. Either way that unfolds.
Yeah, and I don't think them bringing back Ben Simmons would make that big of a difference. If he does come back in this series, I obviously he's a good defender, which they desperately need, but it's not like he can take any of the offensive pressure off of Durant and Kyrie, and I feel like it's a huge distraction, like you mentioned. I don't think that bringing him back would even be worth it at this point, unless you're able to win this series, which I don't see happening. So, I don't think that's worthwhile, and I think Brooklyn needs to take a step back this offseason and kind of think about this team and that they built, and if this is the core they want to stick with. Obviously, with Durant and Kyrie, you feel fairly confident in keeping them around, but a lot of the role players on this team, I feel like, have trouble fitting into this roster and having their roles. I mean, Seth Curry is a good shooter, Drummond's a good rebounder, but they're lacking defense like crazy, and this Brooklyn team just feels very very one-sided, and if they can't do what they want to do, then they're done. They can't adapt their game at all. So it's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds, but I feel pretty confident in Boston winning this series without too much trouble. So yeah, that was our picks in the East. We both had Miami, Philly, Chicago, and Boston. So definitely some more shakeups in the East and the West as far as some of these series going down. Again, a lot with some injuries and then Philly going crazy. But yeah, I feel like this has been a really good postseason so far. We'll definitely talk about it as these first rounds wrap up and see how our predictions are still looking. And then these second round matchups are going to be fantastic. I mean, Golden State, Memphis, if this is all hypothetical, but Golden State, Memphis, Phoenix, Dallas, Miami, Philly, and Chicago, Boston, those all sound like fantastic series. So I think we're in for a treat no matter what goes down here. But I've been enjoying the playoffs a lot so far this year, and I think that we're on track to see more of the same.
Yeah, no, it's been a really good start to the postseason. It's been some big moments already, obviously, and yeah, I mean it's exciting to see my team back in the playoffs playing meaningful games for the first time in like 8 years, where it actually feels like they have, especially now, actually have a chance to advance past the first round. And I mean, I'm just excited to see what the United Center is going to look like tonight. It's going to be crazy. I've seen them selling the Sea Red T-shirts for the last 2 weeks, and it's going to be electric. I'm going to be parked in front of the TV watching that. That's going to have full attention. But yeah, I mean, there's good games tonight. I'm intrigued to see how Atlanta plays against Miami at home. in really a must-win game, or you're on the verge of getting swept, and you don't want to get swept at home. That's not the way you want to go out. And
Mm-mm.
obviously, what is the big question? What's Phoenix going to look like tonight without Devin Booker against a Pelicans team that is, I mean, answered them really just punch for punch so far in this series. I mean, game one they could have just laid down and died, but Willie Green had them ready to play, and they made a comeback, made the game interesting. And then obviously when Booker went down in game two, did a really good job of closing it out. And so I mean, yeah, good for the Pelicans. Like I said, I didn't really expect much from them in the postseason, but now that Devin Booker has gone down, CJ McCollum's played well, Brandon Ingram's played well. It's gonna be interesting. Phoenix, this is all eyes are on you tonight. You got the late game on TNT, so it's gonna be interesting to see how they look tonight after the loss of Devin Booker and the series split 1-1 going back to New Orleans.
Yeah, and if you think about the amount of young guys that New Orleans has in their rotation right now, I mean, they got three different rookies with Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, and then Jose Alvarado. So they got several guys that are really being forced to step up in these games against the one seed, as well as Ingram, McCollum, and Valanciunas having great games. So yeah, I think we got some great games coming up both tonight and this weekend. So plenty to talk about. We'll be back next week to do our NFL mock draft, and maybe we'll talk about some NBA stuff depending on how the series are going. But yeah, definitely some fun stuff going on right now, and I'm looking forward to seeing how some of this unfolds. So
Now we gotta mention Jay Wright, shocker, live in Villanova.
yeah,
That's pretty crazy. That's a void. They've become a blue blood these last couple of years. Obviously, won the Natty in 16 and 18.
18, yeah,
Yeah, with Brunson was on both of those teams. So
Final
um,
Four this year.
yeah, I mean, just one of the best programs right now in college basketball in terms of just year in year out consistency. They're not they've done it the right way. They're not the powerhouse for the. I mean, they still get good recruits, but I mean, they haven't really produced the one and dones like some of these other schools, and I feel like they've reaped the benefits of that come tournament time. And they got the old guys. I mean, they've had some really good NBA players. I mean, Dante DiVincenzo he's not too bad. Jalen Brunson obviously has had a really big season this year.
Mikal
Archie used to
Bridges.
play for from completely forgot about Mikal Bridges, but I just want to go back to that Pelican series real quick. I mean, we talk about how Phoenix can defend the Bison. Tell you, New Orleans can defend. I mean, that Herb Jones is really good,
Yeah.
really, really good. Came out of nowhere this year. Didn't really expect much. I think he got picked in the second round, and has just been incredible. Jose Alvarado plays so hard. I mean, those are the guys
Mm-hmm.
you need. If you can surround good quality veterans, which Brandon Ingram's not really, I wouldn't say he's a veteran. He's more of a young guy still, but he's been in
Yeah.
the league for forever, which is just ridiculous that he's came in the league at 19 and he's now 26, 27 and has been in the league 8 years. But McCollum, Valanciunas, they've been there before. If you can surround those guys with guys like Alvarado and Herb Jones who play hard, buy in, and can get you extra, can lock up and play defense. I mean, it's just, yeah. I mean, New Orleans is building something special, and they're building something special right now without Zion Williamson. So when you add him back into the equation, New Orleans is going to be exciting next year. If hopefully Zion can get back to what we saw when he showed his potential his rookie and sophomore year in the league. So, but yeah, and then I'll close it out with your guy Miggy, one away from 3,000, 33rd player
Yeah.
of all time, looking to do it. Just another milestone to add to his already first ballot Hall of Fame career. So that's hopefully stupid Yankees had to walk in last night and ruin history. They suck.
Yeah. Oh, I
What
agree. I hate the Yankees, man. They
was it
I
like an
mean,
intentional walk?
yeah, intentional
Oh
walk
my
in the
god!
8th inning, and then Karma hit them. Then Austin Meadows came up next and hit a 2-run double, and we won the game. So
Good,
a
good.
little bit of karma there for the sucky Yankees, but I think Detroit's playing Colorado tonight. As long as it doesn't rain out, so I'll definitely be tuned in to see McGee's 3000s hit, and should be pretty cool to see. one more comment about those Pelicans guys, though. You mentioned about how Jones and Alvarado are so uh, are just these scrappy hustle guys. Those are guys that teams like Brooklyn are missing. Brooklyn
Yeah,
doesn't have any of those guys,
exactly. I
and
don't.
you don't realize how big of that you're missing until it's gone. I mean, the Lakers missed Caruso this year, and he's been one of those guys. He's been great on the Bulls this postseason. So you need guys like that on your team, and um, even though they're not putting up crazy numbers in the stat sheet, they're still vital to getting these wins. So yeah, and people forget that Zion was an all-star before he got hurt. So I mean, he's already been an all-star, and he barely even played that much in the NBA. So he's definitely going to be a big factor when he's able to come back. But yeah, and you mentioned Jay Wright. I was a little surprised by that as well. People don't really think about him as when you think of the college head coaches usually a lot, but he's been consistent year in and year out. So it'll be interesting to see where Villanova goes with moving after him and how they're able to keep that winning tradition going without Jay Wright. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing my boy Miggy get 3,000. So yeah, definitely some fun stuff going on right now, and we'll definitely be back to talk about some more of it. And I'm looking forward to our NFL mock drafts. That should be a fun
That's
one.
gonna be so rough, dude. I'm gonna get to pick like 10, maybe. Then I have no clue.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking we'd do it the whole first round, just like the first 10 to 15 or something like that, and because after that it gets harder to to kind of get those picks
Yeah,
done. It after that it's just really just a toss up for some of these picks. So, but that top 5-10 should be interesting. See how those play out. And got a little less than a week until the NFL draft, so that should be fun. I always enjoy the drafts. So. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening to episode 27 of the Should Have Gone Pro podcast. We appreciate all your support. Sorry, schedule's been a little bit shaky, but we're gonna be back on a roll more consistently year coming up. So don't hold your breath. We appreciate everyone's support. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at GoneProPod @GoneProPod. And if you want to talk to us on there, you can. I think DMs are open, so go crazy. But thank you everyone. We appreciate it, and we will see you later.